Now for the Bible readings. Our first reading today is Psalm 2. It's a song written about God's promised king to come. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, "Let us break their chains and throw off their shackles." The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, "I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise. Be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed all who take refuge in him." Next reading is Matthew 2. We began our series in Matthew's Gospel last week. Our second reading is Matthew 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they'd heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod, and was so fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realised that he'd been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who are trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophet, that he would be called a Nazarene.
Thanks, mate. Morning. It's good to be with us this morning. My name's Jordan. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm new, so if you're stressing out about why some random is up the front, that's me. Hopefully I'll be able to get around and meet you all soon. But yes, we are new. My family and I, we've recently moved back up to the coast. We were in Sydney for a couple of years, and there's a lot of things I do not miss about Sydney, but there are a couple of things I do currently, and food was one of them. There's some good food around where we live. Good cafes, good food. You would have loved it, Talia. I tell you what, cafes for days. Woof. Amazing. I remember this one time we went down, it was southwest. And if you've ever been southwest of Sydney, it is multicultural galore, and which means food. Food galore. We were there teaching scripture, actually, and I went into the class with a bunch of kind of rowdy Islander boys, and I was like, I don't know, what are we going to chat about? So I was like, boys, what should we eat while we're here? What should we go? And he was like, oh, sir. And I'm thinking, all right, here we go. I've got the inside lane of where to eat. Sir, you have got to try the KFC. And I was like, I come all this way and I get KFC. I'm like, there's a kid with a refined palate, right? With a wicked wing just on his mind. To be honest, it was pretty good KFC. But then this turned into a full-on disagreement about the best place to eat in Oran Park, of all places, right? And so they were fighting, no, it's this place, no, it's this place, no, it's this place. When you get any kind of group together that's passionate about something, you're going to have disagreements over certain things, aren't you? You can have disagreement about food, the wicked wings. You can have disagreements about music, about schooling, about politics. I can prove it right now. Who voted for... No, we're not going to do that. Woo! Simmer down. There's disagreements about all kinds of things. There's disagreement about religion, isn't there? There's disagreement about Jesus. About Jesus himself. He's a very divisive kind of person. There's a lot of opinions about who Jesus is. Even now, today, that's the case. You can see that in Jesus' art. I've got a couple of pictures of Jesus up on the screen. You've got hippie Jesus. You've got Rastafarian Jesus. If you go to Europe, Jesus is from ABBA. Look at that. You got the Last Supper at 6 and Eurovision at 7. They're all different. All different kinds of Jesus, depending on who you ask. It's always been the case, hasn't it? It's the case here on the coast. If you ask a bunch of random coasties who Jesus is, you'd get a lot of different answers, wouldn't you? Maybe he's just a top bloke. Maybe he's a prophet. I don't know. One guy I invited to church a while back from the gym, the reason he ended up coming was because he thought Jesus was just a nice guy who might teach his daughter how to grow up and do nice things. There's lots of different opinions about who Jesus is. There's a whole lot of disagreement. Who do you think Jesus is? Who do you think Jesus is? Because who you think Jesus is will shape how you respond to Jesus. How you respond to him will be shaped by who you think he is. And friends, can I just say, it deeply matters who you think Jesus is. It is life and death. It is big stuff. Some of you might be new to these things. Perhaps you're one of those people who have joined us across summer. We love that you are here. It is great that you are here. You're in the perfect place to think about these things. You cannot leave this off. Who do you think Jesus is? What is your opinion of him? But there's a bunch of us who have been here for some time. A bunch of you have been here longer than I have, let's be honest. But we have to keep coming back to who is Jesus to make sure that our picture of him is clear. Because it's so easy for us over time just to drift to just thinking about him the way that we would like him to be instead of having him clear of who he really is, yes? And so who is Jesus? Do you have him right? Now, a guy called Matthew wrote this part of the Bible for us. He saw what Jesus did, he heard what he said, and he wrote it down for the sole purpose that we might know who Jesus is, have a really clear picture of it in this biography of Jesus' life. He wasn't just bored when he wrote this. This wasn't just his little passion project on the side. No. He wants you to know clearly who Jesus is. And that's why we come to Matthew chapter 2 this morning, and we come to it with these two big questions in mind. First one is, who is Jesus? Who is this Jesus? And the second one is, how should I respond to him in light of that? These are the two big questions we're going to look at this morning as we come to Matthew chapter 2. Let's look at the first one together. Who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? Well, last week, if you were with us, we saw the lead up and then the birth of Jesus. We didn't see the birth. That's probably good news. But we get to chapter 2 and look at verse 1. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. Now, FYI, there's a bit of a time jump here. That after Jesus was born, we're probably talking about 18 months after. So little baby Jesus and now little toddler Jesus running around, all right? A bit of a time jump here, which means that our nativity scenes where you got like the shepherds together and you got the wise men there, it's not quite accurate, but they're pretty cute. So you can leave them up, they're pretty good. So it's been some time jump, and you get the Magi coming from the east. Now, the first question that should pop in your mind are, what's the Magi, right? What's the Magi? Here's 4 things that they're not. Number 1, they're not anything to do with the brand of noodles. No Magi there. Number 2, they're not Jewish. They're not Jewish. Number 3, they're not kings. Unlike our classic Christmas, the Christmas song, We Three Kings. I don't know who they are. It's not these guys. These guys are more like spiritual stargazers. They're the kind of people who loved researching all different spiritual practices. They had their heads in all the books about this, but they also kind of liked astrology. They like to look at the stars and plan those things out. They'd be the kind of person now who'd be listening to, 3-hour spiritual podcasts and telling you all about it. They'd be finding themselves in Machu Picchu and then tarot card reading in Long Jetty. Do you know what I mean? Like they're a strange spiritual mix of person who are also really into religion. And here's the other thing they're not from anywhere close to Jerusalem. They are not anywhere close. They're probably from that kind of Babylon area off in the east there, somewhere over there. And they're trekking a long journey. We're talking up to like 1,500 kilometers that they've come. And there's no Ubers. There's just Alice the camel, all right? They've jumped on and they've trekked for ages to get here. Weeks, months of a journey to get to this place. And the question is, why are they doing that? What are they doing here? Well, they've not come just for tourism. They've come on a mission. Look at verse 2. So they come and they asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him. Now, I mentioned that these people, they had their heads in their books. They kind of liked different religions and sussing them out. It's probably the fact that they've heard about, from the Old Testament and reading, they've heard that the promised king was coming. That someone was coming who was going to reign over the nations. That one was born. And somehow they've linked this star coming to him. And so they followed it. Here's the thing. This king, though, was waited for from the Jews. They have been waiting for this king. This is their promised king. And so surely, with these people here saying that the time has come, surely they're pretty stoked about the news, yeah? Look at verse 3. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed. Disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. Probably not the reaction that the Magi were bargaining for, right? They were probably waiting for a little bit more excitement than that. Now, King Herod isn't a Jew, but he's been put in charge of this area in Judea. And so at the time, he's the king of the Jews, in one sense, isn't he? He's the king of the Jews. And so you can imagine that he's a little bit surprised when some people come to him saying, we're looking for the king of the Jews. He's going, what am I, chopped liver? Like, that's me. What's going on? But why, did you notice there? He's disturbed, that kind of makes sense, but why all Jerusalem with him? That's a strange little note there, isn't it? Why all Jerusalem with him? Well, we've got a fair bit of info about this King Herod from outside of the Bible, as well as in it, but from outside of the Bible. He's a real guy from a real place in real history. He also happens to be, at the moment, my son's favourite Bible character, which is very disturbing, as you'll come to see in a moment. King Herod was a brutal man. He was a brutal man. He was known for violent outbursts. There's this story that's recorded of him one time as a young bloke. He went off and he killed a bunch of robbers. No trial, no court, just killed them. And so he gets sent to court. And people try to lock him up for doing this, as you would imagine, but he gets off. He then later becomes king. So what does he do as king? He goes back to the court that tried to lock him up and he kills them all. This is a violent man. This is an angry man. He's a psycho. And it gets worse in his old age. It just gets worse and worse and worse. He had his brother-in-law drowned. He executed his uncle. He killed his wife. He killed his sons and his in-laws. The in-laws you can, sympathise. I'm kidding. All right? Whew. He is a brutal man, isn't he? He is crazy. He's unhinged. And eventually, if you kept reading it, as we had it so beautifully read for us before, you'll see that in his anger of this king that he's heard of, he tries to kill him. And instead of just trying to find this one, he goes, I better hedge my bets. I'm going to try and kill all of the children under 2. Do you have a picture of this man? This is a crazy, violent man. And so is there any worry? Is there any wonder that the town is concerned when he is concerned? They are What is this guy going to do? They are freaking out. The city was right to be worried about what he's going to do. And just very briefly, just note how neatly Matthew's account of this man matches with the rest of history's account, right? We know that this man is brutal and violent from outside of the Bible. And so as Matthew writes about him, it makes perfect sense that this is like he is. Because when we come to the Bible, we're not dealing with fluffy fairy tales, we're dealing with history. Real history, real people, real times, real places. And so the Magi come to him and they ask where the real king is. And Herod has kind of the right idea. Verse 4, look at what does he do? He asks the chief priests and the teachers of the law, they should know. And what do they say, verse 5? Where's this one to be born? In Bethlehem in Judea, for this is what the prophet has written. That's how they know. That's what the Old Testament says. They've waited for this one, and there it is. And they go on to quote from Micah chapter 5. It's an Old Testament prophet. And once you see that he's done it here, that Matthew's recorded it in this way here, you'll start to notice that he does it all throughout the chapter, doesn't he? Time and time again. You got that one in verse 5. This is what the prophet has written. Look at verse 15. Scan down. This is after, Herod in his anger is trying to kill Jesus, and so the family of Jesus bail him out to Egypt before coming out later. And look at verse 15. And so was fulfilled what the Lord said through the prophets, out of Egypt I call my son. Look at verse 17. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. And the very last verse of our chapter, look at verse 23 there. He goes to where he would eventually grow up in Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets. Can you see the theme? You can't really miss it because Matthew repeats it. So was fulfilled. So was fulfilled. That's what the prophet said. So was fulfilled. He's trying to bring something to our attention here. The Old Testament promises are fulfilled in this one Jesus. It is pointing to him. This Jesus, the one who the Magi have come to find, he is a big deal. He hasn't just popped up out of nowhere. Things have been pointing to him for years. And so what has been pointing to him? What have we learned before that has been getting us ready for this Jesus? Well, note what Herod asked of the chief priests and the teachers. What did he ask for? Where the Messiah was to be born. The Messiah. That's the same word for Christ, if you've heard that. Messiah, Christ. It just means God's anointed one, his king. Where's God's king to be born? The one who would come to reign over his people. The one who would come to reign over the whole earth. Which is why the Magi come asking, where's the king to be born? See it? King, Messiah, Christ, anointed one. There is the great promise of the Old Testament. That God would send his king to reign. To bring his people together. Let's go look at one of those prophecies in detail. Come to Micah chapter 5 and let's see it in its own context. Keep a finger or a toe or something, keep it in Matthew. We'll come back to it. And come to Micah chapter 5. It's towards the end of the Old Testament, but there's no shame in using the contents page. Micah chapter 5. As you flick there, Micah is a prophet, which means he is telling God's people God's words. And he's telling them at a time when their sworn enemies are on their doorstep. Assyria is ready, waiting on the doorstep, ready to invade, ready to destroy them. And Micah delivers God's people this word from their God. Micah chapter 5, verse 2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. Now, God does miraculously save them at this point, but there's more than meets the eye to this promise, as so often is the case when God makes a promise in the Old Testament. It's fulfilled in the immediate, but it's actually pointing to something even bigger in the future. There's something more going on, and you can kind of see that there is something more going on by the way that this person who is to come is described. Did you see at the end of verse 2 there? Whose origins are from old, from ancient times. This one is from way back, says Micah. There's at least two parts to this, I think. One, he's saying this person has been promised from before now. We don't have time to look at it into detail, but we saw this last week, didn't we? As we looked at the family tree from Matthew chapter 1, the promise stretched all the way back to Abraham, one who would come and help bless the nations. Keep following that through to Samuel chapter 7, the promise to David that the forever eternal king would come. I think Mike is picking up on this. His origins are from old. We're talking about that promised king is the one that's going to come. But secondly, it's not just been promised from before this moment. I think Mike is hinting here that this is not just any ordinary king. This isn't just another bloke who's going to come. His origins are from old, from ancient times. There's at least the hint here that this one who is to come is God himself, the one from before all times, the Ancient of Days. That one will come. And what will he do? Look at verse 4, Micah 5 verse 4. He will stand and shepherd his flock. He'll rule in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth, and he will be our peace. Do you have that promise in your mind now? This is the one that is to come. This is the one that's going to come and rule and reign over his people. Bring that back into Matthew chapter 2. Come back to Matthew. The Magi who have come, they've got some kind of outline in their mind about who this one might be, but Matthew is now colouring in those lines with detail, with colour, vivid colour. Who is Jesus? Who is he? Well, this Jesus, born in Bethlehem, do you remember from Micah? Born in Bethlehem is no ordinary one. He's not just any other baby that's born. He's not just another bloke. He is God's promised king. Further, he's the promised king who is God himself, God the Son, which means that he's not just the king of the Jews, is he? He is the king of the nations. He's the king of everything because he's the God over everything, which tells us two big things about Jesus. Here's one. All of history points to Jesus. All of history points to Jesus. If you didn't have these pointers from the past, you could imagine that God just randomly decided one day, I could send a king, I guess. Or maybe that he kind of saw that the world was spinning a little bit out of control and he's like, actually, no, I have a plan. I could fix this, I reckon. It's not like this at all. Sometimes we can think of God's plan to save and bring his son a bit like Huey's Cooking Adventures. Does anyone remember this guy? If you don't know Huey, let me tell you about Huey. There was this old show, it would usually be on, I think it was like as soon as I got home from school back in the day, which is an odd time for this kind of show. But I'd get home and people would be going shopping when people actually went into the shops and didn't click and collect. And they'd go shopping and this guy would pop around a corner, pretty freaky, and he'd say, I'm coming to your place, which is usually not a nice thing to say to a stranger. But this guy, he would go to their house and he would find just whatever is left in their cupboard and he'd make it work, and he'd make them a nice meal. So it's like, you got sardines and Vegemite, roast dinner. And you're like, how did you do that? I don't know how you did that. He'd just make do. Do you know what I mean? He'd find what was left. They weren't really ready. He wasn't ready, but he'd make do with it. And I think sometimes we can think of God's plans in the world a little bit like that. He just kind of looks out and he's like, this isn't pretty, is it? I did not bargain on this happening. But I can make it work, I guess. That is not how it works. I take it that Jesus was not Mary and Joseph's plan A, but he was God's plan A from the beginning. From the very beginning, he was God's plan A. From the very beginning, God decided, I will send my son to reign over the nations. I'm going to send my son to save them from their sin, to cleanse them and forgive them and have him reign as their king. That is his plan A. That's what he bargained for. Psalm 2, which is read for us, I will make the nations your inheritance. And all of history since that decision, all of history, much of it recorded for us in the Old Testament, has been preparing you for the coming of this king. You, so that you would be ready for him to come. Here's a little picture that gives us at least a taste of it. Those lines from the left, they are promises of Jesus made in the Old Testament that flow to the right, fulfilled in the New Testament. We've seen some of those in our passage this morning, haven't we? Now that's a little bit overwhelming. It's kind of meant to be. It's meant to show us there's a lot. History has been pointing, promising for Jesus to come, and we can see it fulfilled. Doesn't that just engender hope and trust in God for you? You can trust this God because he is the one who has promised for this king to come, and he has made it happen. He has fulfilled it. He sticks to his word. He sees it through. There's no luck or chance involved because the sovereign Lord of the universe is in control and making it happen. You can even see it in some of the stranger details in Matthew chapter 2, can't you? You just see it played out so beautifully. Who made this star appear and just land over Jerusalem for the Magi to follow? Could it not be the Lord of the universe? I'm sure he can make a star do some funky things. Yeah, over and over again you get mention of, it came to them in a dream, came to them in a dream. Isn't that not the Lord just moving history to his end? Who protects his anointed one? Who protects the baby Jesus from the schemes of King Herod? Time and time again in our chapter, you just have moments of God fulfilling his promises, keeping his anointed one safe, keeping his plan on track, because that is what he does. You can trust this Lord. No purpose of his can be thwarted. He will see it through. Jesus is the king that all of history has been pointing to and preparing you for, which means if he is the king that all of history has been pointing to, second thing, all people are for this Jesus. All people are for Jesus. Why the Magi? It's a strange detail, isn't it? We've seen that they're kind of an odd bunch to come looking. Why them? Why not farmers? Why not chippies? Why Magi? They are the least likely people to come searching for this one, aren't they? They're not Jewish, they're from ages away. Why them? Because they are the nations. They're from far off. They're not from home. They're from far away. They represent those who are far off, the nations. And the promise from the Old Testament is that the reign of this king wouldn't just be over his people in Jerusalem. No. The nations will be coming. Because this king reigns over the nations. You see it, we looked at Micah, here's Micah chapter 4. Many nations will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord. They're going to stream in. They're going to flock to this place. Because this king is their king. Jesus isn't just the king of the Jews. He's the king of the nations. He's the king of the Babylonians, where the Magi are from. He's the king of Australians. He's the king of Koreans. He's the king of Belarusians and Samoans and Canadians and even Tasmanians. Could you imagine? This Jesus reigns over everyone. He's not just the local king. No, he is the nation's king over all people. You might have come new to these things and go, this Jesus thing, it seems like it works for some people and that's nice for them. It's just not really my kind of thing. This Jesus is your king. He is your king. Whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, he is the king of the nations. God has placed his son to rule. That is what Matthew has been pointing us to. That is the answer to the question of who is Jesus? The king of the nations that all of history has been pointing to. There's our first big question, who is Jesus? And the natural second one is this, isn't it? Well, how do I respond to Jesus? How will I respond to Jesus? How will you respond to Jesus? What will you do with this news? I wonder what goes on for you as you hear it. what goes on inside of you as you hear of the reign of this king over your life, that there is one to whom you answer to. There's one to whom you belong. There's one who actually has charge of your life, who rules over you. What goes on as you hear that news? I want to highlight 3 possibilities. I'm sure there's more, but I think at least 3 come up from our passage. Here's the first possible response. It's anger. It's anger. That's the response of King Herod, isn't it? He's angry. Verse 3, he's disturbed, he's troubled. Verse 8, he acts as if he wants to go and worship the king, but he secretly just wants to go and kill him. And then in his anger, verse 16, he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and in its vicinity who were 2 years old and under. Anger. Why so much anger? That is a big response, isn't it? Why such an intense response? Maybe it's just him. We've seen that he's a pretty angry kind of guy, pretty temperamental. But look at verse 22. When they heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, so Herod's died and his son's taken over, he was afraid to go there. It's no safer when his son now reigns. So it's not just Herod. There's a new king. You know, same age, same income, same super contribution, same anger. The same problem, but why? Why that anger? What is going on? Here's the key. The arrival of Jesus is good news. And it is a huge threat. It is a huge threat. For him, it is a threat to his position. It's a threat to his prestige. It's a threat to his power. It's a threat to his freedom, his own control over his own life. And so his response is anger. When the world hears about the reign of this king, this Messiah, there is anger. Did you catch that in Psalm 2, which was read for us earlier? The kings of the earth rise up. The rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed. Don't be surprised that the world hates Jesus. Of course the world hates Jesus. He is a threat to them. But what about you? What about you? What goes on in your heart as you hear that there is one who reigns over you, who controls, who cuts in on your own freedom and plans for his own? I can remember so clearly at a funeral I went to years ago. Someone's wife had died, and the pastor was up the front giving a sermon, not unlike this, you know. And the husband of the one who had died would just yell out every couple of minutes. Whenever Jesus was mentioned, he would just yell. There was anger and frustration. When the gospel was preached of this king, he couldn't bear it. He couldn't bear to hear it. He hated it. He didn't want a king over him. And it was just in his emotional state, as you can imagine, with his wife dying, it was just coming forth. I don't want that king over me. And the further on in life that you go, having defied this king, it becomes kind of more personal, doesn't it? Are you saying I've been wrong my whole life? Are you saying I've been mistreating him my whole life? Are you saying that he is the boss and not me? Because I seem to have done everything in my life on my own. Are you saying I'm wrong? His heart was so proud and so hard that he couldn't even bear to hear of the king. Now that will show itself more readily in some than in others, but I take in all of us there is at least a seed of that, isn't there? I do not want a king over me. I want to rule my life. That's what I want. I want freedom. I set up my life in such a way that I try and get as much freedom and I can make as many decisions as I can make for me, for my family. I'm the one in charge. I don't want someone over me. And you're saying there is one? Do you feel yourself just squirming a little at the thought inside? If so, there is something good to that. The good thing is you have caught at least partly who Jesus is. That is precisely the claim that he makes. He is the king. And not just the random king out there. No, he is the king of you. Your king. You've caught his grandeur. But it could be that you've missed his goodness. He's not a king who rules with an iron fist like some tyrant. He is a good and gracious king, didn't we sing? A good and gracious king. He doesn't rule like King Herod. He doesn't rule with anger. He is kind and good. Hear these words from later on in Matthew. This is Jesus, this king, who says, "Come to me, all who are weary, tired, and are burdened, weighed down, and I will give you rest." Rest. I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Don't you want rest for your soul? That's the kind of king who brings it. He is a good king. And as we'll come to see as we keep trekking and making our way through Matthew, it is his death in our place that gets us this rest. The king who would lay down his life. Isn't that the kind of king that you want? That is the king you have. To follow him isn't to lose freedom. No. It is to find it. It's to gain life, not lose it. So if you are in that place of thinking about this king, if you're not sure that you've gotten him right, you're not sure that you've responded to him the way that you think you should have, come to Jesus. Can I offer my invite as well to life this week? Tuesday night, I'll be there. A bunch of others will be there. We'll keep digging into who this man is. Come along. There's the first one, but you might be sitting there and just going, I'm not that angry about it. That sounds pretty intense, actually. It's just not really a huge deal for me. Here's the second possible response to hearing the news of Jesus. It's just apathy. I don't care. What's good for you is good for you, but not me. Whatever. When Herod wants answers, who did he go to? Do you remember? He goes to the chief priests. He goes to the teachers of the law. He goes to the ones who know their Old Testament really well, like the back of their hand. And they pull out the verse, don't they? Boom, Micah chapter 5. Thank you very much. There you go. I know that one. They were ready. But what do they do with that info? They've got it. What do they do with it? Nothing. Nada. Zilch. They don't follow the Magi. They don't seem that happy about it. They kind of just know of it, and it ends. Just having the Bible in their hands and some answers in their heads, it led to no love in their heart. No following with their feet. They just were, Could that be some of us this morning? You know what's going on. Perhaps you're someone who's grown up around the things of Jesus. Perhaps you've been around the things of Jesus for some time, years. Who has the answers to the questions, who has the memory verse on the fridge, but whose life is not significantly altered by the fact that Jesus reigns. That's apathy, isn't it? This was very much me in earlier years, very much me. And I reckon this is a story for many of us, yeah? Who knew the answers, grew up around church, knew the stuff, but whose life, if you looked in on it, doesn't look any different to anyone else's apart from going to church every now and then. That is a response of apathy. And churches are full of people who rock up on every couple of Sundays, but whose lives show no evidence of having Jesus as king. That is everywhere. Does yours? It's always worth us taking that moment, isn't it? Just to think on our lives. What does my life look like? Does it look like it should with Jesus as king? Do I know stuff about him? Or do I know him truly, deeply? Now, would someone at work be surprised to hear that I go to church and that Jesus is my king? For the parents among us or the grandparents among us, what are my hopes, my genuine top tier hopes and goals for my kids? Are they the same kind of hopes and goals that anyone on the coast could look at and go, yeah, I like that? Or are they shaped and molded by the fact that Jesus is king? Their king. Matthew is helping us move away from anger and move away from this apathy, but towards what? Towards what? Well, here's the final response. We'll finish with this, and it's the one that the Magi so beautifully live out for us. It's the third. It's adoration. Adoration. What is their response? Look at verse 10. They've trekked all across the land to get here. They've followed him. What's their response when they finally get there? When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. In the language that this is written in Greek, it's written in Greek and gets translated for us. It says that they were like rejoiced with great joy. They were not just stoked, they were super stoked. They were as stoked as you could possibly be. They were pumped, which led them, look at verse 11, what do they do with that? On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and they worshipped him. That's a strange scene, isn't it? Coming up to the bedside of a toddler to worship. That takes some humility, doesn't it? Adoration. They adore this king. They love this king. They rejoice with great joy. They are super stoked. Brothers and sisters, when you hear of the news of this king, what goes on in your heart? Is it yeah, it's good? Or is it, rejoice with great joy, super stoked? Shouldn't that be our response? Over time, more and more, as we hear more and more and learn more and more of this king, that more and more we go, yes, wow, that is amazing. Do you love this one? Do you adore this one? Does it stoke joy in your heart? There is the response. Adoration. An adoration in our heart that leads our whole life to be in humble service of that king, that causes us to come to him and bow down and worship. Not as a burden, not as something we feel like we just have to do. No, but as a joy. I want to give my life to serve this one. Joy. It's the best. Some of you have been following Jesus longer than I've been breathing. You have lived life right. Isn't that the precise response that Jesus wants? A life lived in service of this king is a life well lived. It is the good life. Don't listen to anything that tells you different. That is the good life. You are not crazy. You have responded rightly to the king who reigns, the one who is worthy of all glory and honor and power and praise now and forever. Amen? He is worthy of that. That is the life worth living, one in adoration to the king, the one who is worthy of our praise. As we finish, can I just mention one particular area for us? When we sing, what goes on for you? It's a bit of a strange thing we do, singing, isn't it? We don't often do it in groups outside of church, and we come to church and we sing. I get it, it's a little bit strange sometimes, but what goes in your heart as you sing? One of the reasons that we sing is just help our hearts get on board with what's going on with our head. We know that Jesus is king. We know that he is the good and gracious king. We know those things, but sometimes our hearts take a little bit to catch up. Yes? What goes on for you as you sing? If we are singing deep gospel truths of the glory of the king, which I take it we do, then that should shape us and affect us. It's all right to smile as we sing because we sing of things that are worth smiling about, don't we? They are good things to sing about. It is all right to smile as we sing. It's all right to raise your hands in praise. If you want to clap, you can clap. That's all right because we are singing of things that are worthy of our joy and adoration and praise. And so can I encourage you, when we come and meet together and sing, that is a beautiful moment. Sing with joy. Sing with gusto. Sing with praise to the one who is worthy of that praise. I'm going to invite the band up now. We're about to do just that. We're about to pray and then sing. But as they come up, let me just read to you some of the words that we are about to sing. And let them just ponder and sit in your heart so that you're prepared to sing with great joy. To our God be the glory. To our God be praise. Why? Because he alone is the name above all names. Because he is, isn't he? And so I will boast ever only in the Lord my God, for I know his glory. His glory is my good. Amen? Let me pray. Father, we give you great thanks for your Son, the Lord Jesus. We give you great thanks that in your faithfulness and in your power, you have moved all of history around him reigning as King. We praise you for that. And we thank you that as our King, he is not one who rules with an iron fist or with tyranny, but one who rules by laying down his life in our place, who takes our burdens upon himself, who brings rest for the soul. We love him and we adore him. Amen.